Ja morjesta moi ja jatketaan taas vähän Among the Sleepia, patch 200. No, viime kerrassa toki vähän aikaa, se johtui siitä, että oli pieni Lappimatka ja mä olin siellä viikon, että on taas kotiutunut. Ja pelataan taas ehkä joku tunti. Tää peli ei ole niin kovin pitkä, mutta jos mä huomasin kanssa, että nämä piirustukset on achievementteja, eikä saavutuksia, mutta ne on lisätty jälkeenpäin. Ja tää peli ei tietenkään huomioi näitä, mitä mä kerännyt, että ei voi mitään. Joo. Eiköhän nämä asetukset ole kunnossa. Mä huomasin siinä, kun mä kuvasin sitä viimeksi, että se jämähti tähän alkukuvaa. Tai siis se oli vaan tää alkuvalikko, niin kun mä vaihoin niitä asetuksia. Se ei näkynyt videossa, että mä en koske näihin, mutta mä katsoin ihan muuten vaan. Joo, mä en tiedä miksi sille ei junnas. Mutta no niin, jatketaan tarinaa. Elikkä mä oon kerännyt piirustuksia tässä ekassa kentässä tutoriaalissa, mutta tää peli ei sitä huomioon, mutta niin justiinsa on pelannut joskus myöhemmin varmaan, mutta eikä mä välttämättä varsinaisesti eti niitä piirustuksia, mutta kerrotaan, että mitkä pystytään. Tähän jäätiin. Ja me kuunnellaan näitä kommentaattorijuttuja myös, että jotenkin tää edistyy hitaasti. Viimeksi mä muistaakseni kuuntelin ton ensimmäisen. Tää on saavutus, jos ei sitä ole. Mä en tiedä miksi ei sit kuulu sitä ääntä enää tosta. Okei, melkein se kuuluu tuolta. Mutta mulla on tuo saavutus jo, niin sitten hyötyy, eikä nyt kuunnellaan sitten tästä eteenpäin. Ja nää on aika pitkiä, mutta kuunnellaan silti.
It was big challenge to make this level scary because it contains no physical monster, and since it's so open, we wanted to create a level where the player could had a main objective with several sub goals, which could be completed in any order. And also, since this is not inside of a house or anything like that, it's an open playground. We found that it was a lot harder to make it scary, just because players aren't afraid of something jumping out from around a corner or something like that. So it was definitely a challenge, and I also think this is the least scary level of the game.
Joo, niin kuten sanoin, että tää on vähän täysin semipelottava, että tässä on pelottavia ääniä, mutta tässä ei ole vihollisia. Tässä on tämmösiä mini-tehtäviä, tai niin sanottuja, että pitää kerätä niitä vaikka 5 pöllyä siihen kiikkulautaan ja pääsee eteenpäin.
This level was originally just kind of a bridge from reality to fantasy. So it was really short, and you just walked in one door and out another through a tunnel. And it sort of grew as we worked on it and turned into this playground level.
That's the start, I guess. At the point, we divided a few of the remaining chapters in the game to different people, and we just went off to get started on some stuff creatively. And that was way back when this was the transition between reality and fantasy, and not its own chapter. And it's been through so many phases since then.
Sori, jos mä vähän miiskutan pikku nuhan, mutta ei siitä sen enempää. Seuraava.
Right here is probably my favorite thing about this level is the fire flowers. Like there's ones who rise up from the ground and ones who are actually on the ground, and they both have like this kind of wind chimey sound when you walk on them. Sort of like it's kind of like they are small bells or something. And that's one of the few things that I actually really like about the audio in the end. These are so subtle and kind of magical, yet kind of concrete, because you actually are bumping into these flowers.
Joo, ja tää kenttä oli myös Alpassa, suljetussa Alpassa, ja ne jotka se sai, se oli vähän erilainen kuin valmis peli, mutta aika samanlainen kuitenkin. Okei, next.
it's important to note also how different this is in terms of setting and theme from the first level of the game, the house. This is, after the hub level, you have a transition to this completely far out, magical, almost fairy tale like type of environment. You're suddenly in a cave with glowing flowers and there's a abandoned playground.
Okei. Näin ei tunnu ainakaan nyt puhuvan niin paljon. Jos nyt kun alkaa mörköjä tulla, niin voi olla, että mä en ehkä kaikki keskityttäisiin ehkä skipattuu noita, kun tästä mörköjä varoa ja keskittyy dialogiaan, niin voi olla, että kun menee ohi, mutta seuraava.
It's been huge changes and small ones. Like for instance, the owl you see by the carousel. I think that one was took a lot of iterations because people didn't notice it, and then we kind of had this kind of flame that you kind of see vaguely now, but it was too bright, so people thought it was dangerous, so they didn't want to touch it, and it was kind of we used a lot of time to kind of tweak it so it would seem easy to see yet safe to touch. I remember quite a few testers commenting like either they didn't notice it or it was too scary.
Muistaakseni tää ei pyörinyt automaattisesti alun perin. Mä en ihan varma. Mun mielestä ei pyörinyt tolleen. Muistan pelaaja pitää itse liikuttaa. Ei todellakaan. Toi oli uutta. Ja tässä kerrottiinkin, että tässä on pieniä lisäyksiä. Nyt ei mitään kovin suuria, mutta kuitenkin vähän visuaalisen puolen mukana.
Well, I really like the cave level because like it's just an enormous cave and the lighting is fantastic. I think, especially when you enter the big cave room, you can see so much like geometry and buildings and stuff, and the lighting is just perfect, I think.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things about this whole room. We wanted to quickly introduce the end goal, which is the playground castle in the background, which is what you want to reach at the end, and also present the means for you to get there, which is the bridge from the tower over to the castle. And then we had to limit the player from being able to just go there straight away, which turned into this seesaw puzzle where you have to collect the owls around the playground and place them in their nest before you can actually climb up the tower.
Jep, eli tuonne. No nää valot kertoo aika hyvin, että jos mä nyt menen tonne alas, niin mä pääsen takaisin ylös, että kuunnella tietenkin.
It's a lot of sounds being triggered on slides, so you take away a lot of the children's sounds when you slide down, so it's more vague. When you're down here, they sound like they're far away, whereas when you're up there, it sounds like they are down here. So it's kind of wanted to give impressions that there were a lot of kids around in a way, but not really around you. This whole place is about loneliness for me, this whole level.
Is there a way up this tower?
Okei. Ehkä meillä on yksi pöllö ja tossa on toinen. Onko tätä paikkaa siirretty? Mun mielestä ei ollut tossa. Mun mielestä on tossa hiekkalaatikossa ennen. Eikä pitää näköjään varautua, että pöllöönkin paikkoon saattaa olla snadisti muutettu. Nyt laitetaan nää tänne. Siinä on 2. Lukemaan noita oikein. Onks nyt 6 yhteensä? Aha, okei. Ehkä nyt oli 6. Eli kaikki pitää kerätä, muuten tää tonne ei pääse.
The theme of a child's imagination was very interesting to work with, but also proved some challenges to appear. For instance, in level 2, you are collecting these owls, which is placed in something that looks like a nest on one end of a seesaw. The idea was that the child thinks that these owls are heavy enough to keep the weight of the seesaw down so that the child can climb onto the climbing tower. And because this is the child's perception of reality, then that is the reality. and I think that idea is very cool. The problem with it is that this is not something that is in any way, shape or form explained within the game, and so that a lot of people just don't understand. So when they are confronted with the task of, hey, you need to get these owls and bring them back here, then since people don't understand that whole thought process of it, it just becomes, oh, I have to collect these random items and that's gonna help me up. So it felt to people, or to some people at least, it felt like just a stupid or a nonsensical fetch quest. But it did actually have what I think is a pretty cool little backstory to it. And there were many of these situations that we wanted to do something really weird and crazy just because we were able to play around with a child's imagination. But it turned challenging to communicate this with our players.
No, kylläpäs oli pitkä. Seuraava.
The level is divided into two halves, with the first part where it's daylight and cozy, and you hear the sounds of children playing, and it's a rather uplifting atmosphere. And then halfway through, or pretty early, I guess, it all changes and becomes dark, and that's when we want the player to feel tense and to be afraid of going into the parts of the level that he can't see, even though there's nothing there, which was a problem for some players.
Yeah.
Now we're at the shed, and so far the level has been very not threatening, completely different from, well, more similar to the intro to the tutorial level than the scary dark level 1. But here we wanted to surprise the player by having the player to go into the shed and pick up the owl, and then you would hear the sound of footsteps, children running, and then the door being slammed and then shut, and then it would open after a while, and the setting would have been completely changed.
Jep, se nähdään hetken kuluttua, mutta kuunnellaan se tämä.
I'm just really proud or pleased with the transition when you enter the shed, pick up the owl, and you feel so trapped and just alone. And the shift in atmosphere there is super effective, I think. I love that moment.
Se tyyppi nyt ei oikein saanut sanoa mitään mielenkiintoista. Nämä jotkut kuulostaa...
We should be careful.
Ehkä nämä jotkut tyypit kuulostaa, että olisi vähän ujoja. Tässä on noin kertoi, että settings muuttuu, että se tulee avemaista. Tässä on ärsyttävää, että kun ei tiedä, että onko nämä samat vai ei. Esimerkiksi ilmestyykö tää tähän päässä?
We changed a lot of things, like a lot of sounds, a lot of lighting, I know, and it becomes really airy. All the children stop making a fuss and the girl starts crying.
Mä luulen, että toi ilmestyy tähän. Mä en oo varma. Taas pitää kokeilla. Onko sulla kuunnellut tän vai ei?
Now we're at the shed, and so far the level has been very...
On se sama. Joo, tässä on vähän huonosti silleen tehty, kun tässä joutuu väliin pyöri samassa paikassa ja sitä ilmestyy lisää noita. Ettei tiedä, onko nyt kuunneltu vai ei. Mun mielestä ne vois jotenkin merkata jollain värikoodilla, että onko se kuunneltu vai ei. Mutta sen olisi voinut lisätä tähän myös. On vähän sekava. Se vaan ilmestyi siitä. Elikkä nyt meillä on niinku 3 lintua. 3 ekaa oli aika helppo löytää. Ne oli aika esillä oikeastaan. Elikkä tässä on niinku tavallaan niinku pitää vaan 3 löytää ja 3 niinku oli esillä. Mun mielestä meni vähän niin, laitetaan se nyt tänne kanssa. Oi. Ollaan puolivälissä jo. Meneekö tähän tuntia, kun se eka sessio meni yli tunti puheitten takia. Au. Ai niin, että ei jaksa kävellä kovin pitkä. Tai tää kaatilla.
Tell us about saving loading and stuff.
Well, basically for about maybe 1.5 years we had no saving whatsoever. And then we had to add that to the game because it was a feature we really needed. So yeah, so basically we added that like way too late into production. And there was like the game was not prepared at all for loading from any stage. So we had to do a lot of work to make that a possibility. And then we had to test it a lot and find all the weird bugs, like loading from a specific point in the game and maybe a chair was not positioned correctly, so you'd get stuck in a door or something.
Yeah.
So saving loading is something you would recommend people have to start from the beginning?
Yeah, exactly. It's just so useful to just have it always. It makes it easier to test from like a specific point in the level as well.
Okay.
So what do you sort of, when you were working with saving and loading, there was a lot of, I know there was a lot of sounds that were probably not quite well described. I guess, was there anything else, or was the sound the main purpose?
Well, yeah, there was a lot of sounds, like, so you'd have an audio trigger that you were meant to walk into, and maybe it was called like sound 01, and it's really difficult to know what that sound actually is. And I don't know if, like, is that sound meant to be turned off when you load from this point, or is it not? It's impossible to tell sometimes. So I had to punch the audio guy a bit every now and then.
Joo, sori mä saatan, että voi olla helposti kun missään jotain näitä juttuja. Voi olla, että jää huomaamatta, että pahoittelen niistä, että mä yritän kuunnella näitä.
In an earlier iteration of this level, you had to get a key from a tree that was standing above the maze, and you would throw something at it and it would fall down into the maze. And then you would have to go through it to find the object. And that was, I think, the puzzle that made us realize that having physical keys that you had to carry around is a bad idea, because the player can toss them around and lose them and never get them back again, which is a hard design problem. So we ended up having inventory objects that you just magically get into your pocket when you click on them, instead of having the player carrying them around.
Okay.
So maze, here it darkens a bit, and I also we added like heartbeats here to kind of foreshadow things, because there's an event at the end of the maze when you. It's also very claustrophobic, but at the end there's like this place, and you can see it leads down, and if you go down you're trapped, and so it starts kind of being scary and heart beating, and the kid is nervous, and with the right to be, because once you go in you're trapped. I think when we tried the game, at conferences or expos and whatever, it was the people who already were prepared to be scared. They would be so much more scared than people who didn't, because people they make this horror themselves. Like we just kind of try to set up the horror for them.
No näköjään tuolle Nallellekin lisännyt pikkusen dialogia sivustolla sanonut aikaisemmin. Nyt vissiin puuttuu enää yksi. Pitää löytää pois täältä. Ui, se on pelottava. Siellä. Let me out. Oi, se oli pelottava paikka. Eikä nyt vielä se kiikkulauta putsle, tai mikä nyt onkaan. Edelleenkään tiedä. En nyt... teltta tai joku. En nyt täysin varma, että onko jäänyt jotain näitä kuuntelematta, kun mun mielestä on aika hyvin katsellut kyllä ympärilleen. No, tää oli tosi raivostuttava alpassa, se oli tosi huonosti suunniteltu. Tää fysiikka jotenkin oli hankalia, mutta tässä pitäisi olla helppo, okei, tässä olla enemmän näitä.
In level 2, the cave level, there's a chest with a rock on top of it, and you need to well, there's a wheel stuck on a branch that you need to remove from the branch and have it collide with the rock. And it used to be more complex,
yep.
But it never really worked, so we had to make it as simple as it is in the game right now.
Yep.
And it's just not that fun because it's so easy. And I wish we could have had more time to implement that properly, the way it was originally meant to be.
Okei, ehkä ne koki, että se oli liian hankala omastakin mielestä, se oli tosi hankalaa, mutta tässä ei näköjään tarvinnut yrittää, ne harmittelee. Mä en tiedä, miksi ne päättyi sitten tommoseen ratkaisuun. Olen mäkin vähän pettynyt, se alpassa se oli paljon haastavampi, tässä se oli vaan, että koska se that's it.
Do you guys remember how many times or how bad the wires or rope physics bugged out?
Jep, mä muistan
I think
alpassa.
that ropes had gone through,
Se oli tosi vaikea.
yeah, 5-6 iterations of using different systems and making systems ourselves and just trying it to get to behave properly. And I guess the final version here is quite subtle and works quite well, but it's just
totally worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it. It's just a minor detail that makes the entire game worth playing, right?
I think we spent about 1 year to get the rope physics right.
Good thing we use it everywhere in the game.
That's kind of a thing that when you develop a game and don't know what you're doing, you end up spending so much time trying out stuff, and it's really healthy. And of course, you need to experiment, but after a while, I think everyone lost a lot of their, killed their darlings basically because it didn't work in the end, or it didn't fit with the overall narrative or anything. But that's definitely something interesting we learned from developing this game. It's just so many things you need to try out to make a game, and so many things that probably won't make it.
Joo, mä oon samaa mieltä tosta, että oli liian hankala alpassa. Ne halusi jotenkin kikkailla fysiikkojen kanssa, mutta sitten päätyi vaan, että tehdään sit noin helppo.
And then we have the notorious chest puzzle. This the rope plays a part of this puzzle, as we mentioned the rope earlier. We've had so much trouble. The whole puzzle with just getting the tire to behave like we wanted it to, which it still is far from perfect than what we wanted.
I think this is the puzzle we worked the most on, that changed the least during the iterations, because we were afraid of changing it too much, I think, and we didn't really have a nice way to solve the problems that it has. I think we never really felt like it fit with the whole you're a young child thing.
Yeah.
Because you stretch out and you grab this big heavy tire that's hanging there, and when you think about it, it doesn't really fit. But I don't think people have a big problem with it.
It's probably the puzzle that I like the least. I like the idea and the design that we had, but it just never turned out the way I pictured it. And it was partly partly that the rope was really hard and just it lived its own life. But also we had the internal discussions of this puzzle shouldn't be in because it's too heavy, and people thought that it might break immersion in a way as well.
No niin, siinä ne kertoo, että fysiikkojen kai jotenkin oli hankaluuksia, ja ne ei saanut päättää, niin se päättyi tuollaiseen ratkaisuun. Tämä ilmestyi tähän.
After you've picked up all the owls, the mood changes, and we actually have a complex trigger system with the audio here. so that when you approach the gate to backtrack to put all the owls in, and it picked up everything. There's quite a lot of kind of scary sounds happening. It's quite intense, and you feel like there's a presence by the gate especially.
Tää on sille tosi rasittava tää backtrackaus siinä mielessä näiden kommenttinoiden kanssa, koska ei tiedä mitkä sä oot kuunnella, etkö näitä ilmestyy lisää vielä, niin se on vähän rasittava kuitenkin. Mä oletan, että tää on sama. Mä en sitä paina, mikä nyt tässä pitäisi päästä. Näin. Tosi kaikkea, jos puuttuu yksikin, niin tää ei vaan pääse. Tuo kiikkulauta ei pysy tasapainossa. No niin, nyt päästään eteenpäin.
So we did talk about having the level change a lot as you climbed up this last tower with like rock slides going off and just everything falling apart around you. Sadly, we never got the time to implement that.
Aha, joku jäi kesken suunnittelussa.
When you go into the tower, every time you go in here, you hear like some sort of rumbling, and you feel like sort of the world around you sort of changes a bit.
Uusi ääni.
So that you get the feeling that you escaped something.
Vanhemmat vissiin riitelee. On niin kuin kuluttanut varmaan aikaa, kun on lisännyt äänimaailmaa tähän. Kyllä huomattavasti lisää kyllä tätä uudelleen peliarvoa. Niin kuin peli on sama, mutta äänimaailma, päivitys ja graafinen niin antaa kyllä arvoa tälle lisää. Ja sitten tämä kommentaattori juttu. Jei. Piirustus.
Here's a bridge tied to sort of the imagination field aesthetic. So it sort of exists as a part of extension of the imagination area.
Yes, and we wanted to do this to highlight the bridge, and just to make the players realize that when they get to the top of the tower, they are getting really close to getting the imagination object, which is what they have been searching for the whole time.
Okay.
These memory fields, or imagination fields as we call them, they came into being when we realized that we needed to have more concrete goals for the levels.
All right,
because in the
then.
beginning,
One
your
more
objective
time.
in a level
But
was
that's
to
it.
go and find the exit. So we needed these key fragments that you would collect as you go through the game, in order to like unlock the final door or something like that. So we needed to put these objects into the levels in a way that the player would recognize when he or she encounters it. Like, you should instantly recognize that this is something important, something special, something that stands out from everything else. And it, as these objects are fragments of the kids' imagination, we also wanted them to emphasize that these are part of a different reality than the one you are usually walking around in. So we put the objects inside these glowing, big, refractive spheres. Actually, there are no spheres left. We made it more like drapes that cover invisible things. And yeah, we also have this kind of distortion effect on it, where things inside will appear to be not real, I guess. It's they don't appear tangible.
Hitto on pelottavan näköinen. Miten on tuon silmille tehnyt? Okay.
So these imagination fields felt very empty and boring for a long time, because all that was in them was these single objects that you didn't really have any connection to, because this was the first time you were properly introduced to it, and you just picked it up and moved on and found the end of the level. So it didn't have the impact that we wanted it to have, because these are like the main objectives or sub-objectives in the game. Yeah, so we needed to connect these these areas to the mother in a way. So yeah, what we did, as you can see here, is that we put her in here and we posed her in a way that could be related to the object that was in the field. Like the toy elephant, she will stand up and she will hold it as if she's playing around with it in front of the kid. And the book, for example, she will sit, she will kneel, and she will hold the book in front of her as if she's reading for the kid. We wanted it to be connected to the memory that the kid has of the mother.
Tuo oli uutta, tuo silta takana, niin se on ennen kaatunut. Mä eikö sitä me kokeile, että ultasti vauva tippuu ja tulee latauskuva. No.
And now we come to the most musical part of our show, the xylophone bridge.
Finally, we must be getting closer.
I'm not sure if it was still inverted, but there was an accident where we kind of inverted the xylophone bridge so that the biggest one will sound the highest, which is of course not what it's like in the real world, but I kind of liked it. It's kind of a cool disconnect. The one responsible for the sound system was also the one responsible for everything AI, and the AI was always much more broken than the audio. So it was also always painful to me to kind of have to tap her on the shoulder and ask if she could look at the audio, because she would it would always be a bad priority because we needed AI, of course. So I think that's sort of the most striking part of the game, that sort of shows that it's bad to develop your own audio engine functionality when you don't really have the resources for it.
Okei, se siitä kentästä. Onward to the next one. Vissiin päästään sinne warp-zoneen taas. Jep, täällä taas.
We made it back.
Yes, we did. Lisää kuunneltavaa. Tietenkin nääkin aina
I guess
uudistuu.
there's a lot to be said about the pipes in the game. That is used as a transition between the chapters and into the hub between the chapters.
We have to find a way to safety.
It's basically a
Find a way
relic
out of this
from
mess.
an earlier version of the story. I know, Anders, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, so this goes back to an early iteration where Teddy was the bad guy. The pipes were all meant to be to take you to the hub and then to the next levels. But then what you would learn is that these were all just these would always take you to into like Teddy's lair, where and all the levels were
together.
Like they were constructed to be scary for children, so he would drag children through them and make it scary, and the pipes would drain their fear. And then towards the end, you would learn that the fear was condensed and became liquid and then boiled, and then and then the game would end by him Teddy showing his real character, which was a scary monster, and he would put the child into the boiling fear pot, and that was the ending of the game for the longest time.
Cool. There was also a huge chapter, the last chapter that was cut, which basically takes these metal themes of these pipes and sums them kind of up in this huge machinery, so you would kind of get their role as you wouldn't understand that during the game.
Content cut-tekin ollut.
We also used like the recording of the mom singing the lullaby here as sort of like showing that it got clearer the more toys you get in, so every time you go to hub and activate, you'll get more and more cool, like you'll hear the mother getting closer and less sort of distorted. It's sort of like midways between her sounding from a different sphere and midways sort of transistor broken speaker.
Selvä. Joo, pitää olla kokonaan kiinni eikä melkein. Pyöritetään taas. Noin. Tullaanko mukaan peli puolivälissä? It's alive.
Yes, she sounds clearer now, don't you think? Come on, we have no time to lose. Watch your step. Whenever you're ready.
Elikkä joo, kato. Nää vissiin me ollaan kerätty. Jep, ollaan peli puolivälissä. Huppa tänne alle. Joo, mä luulen, että tähän meni vähän vähemmän aikaa nyt. Eikä nyt tulee vissiin metsäkenttiä. Tässä maailmasta tulee ensimmäinen mörkö.
Now you see that everything is different behind the door. This is what we talked about earlier, that it gives like a little bit of prequel of the next level. All the sounds are changed out, and mother sounds clear each time. It's a bit of sound and visuals for the next level.
Ja tää on niinku aina vähän kertoo seuraavan tason pikkusen, että minkä näköinen se on, ja sit tajus, että mitä meinasi. Otetiin H. Nyt tää lataa vähän pitempään. Näin. Pitää tarkistaa, onko mä saanut lisää. Ilmeisesti en oo saanut. Siinä näkyy kuitenkin, että 6 saavutusta. Noitut lisää, on kaikki piirustuksia.
I feel that we nailed a lot of areas to what Among the Sleep turned out as. So, with like I mentioned before, the big and the fantastical, I think we nailed. I love the feeling of the swamp areas in level 3. The forested house, I really enjoyed that level. And that's everything from atmosphere to the art. I think we've been really lucky, I guess, with the skill level of the people and how much they did and how hard they worked for Among the Sleep.
I think the whole game has a curve, a tension curve, and like level 3 has that in itself. It starts off quiet, it gets eerie, and then it gets full-blown scary as you get chased by a monster. And then it's scary up until the end, where it's calm again. You meet the mother, and it's like you have the whole tension curve of the game in one level. So if I wanted to show people one level, that would have to be it.
In the initial design of this level, the forested house, there was an active gameplay mechanic that allowed the player to switch between the house and the forest. It's a mechanic that might have been a good fit if the whole game was based around it, but just for this level we felt it was a bit too much. Plus it also required us to make 2 full versions of this level, and so it's a bad idea from a production perspective in that sense.
Okay.
Once you come into the big room, you notice there's a lot of lighting focused on the 3 places you can go. They're all blocked, but you see the clear kind of motive of a painting on each one. The one in front of you, and Teddy even states this, has some floating things which are similar to the ones you've seen inside the imagination fields. It's sort of how we kind of told people, like, this is where you go.
Okei, eli tässä on 3 paikkaa, kaikki on lukossa. Kaikkien takana jonkinlainen maalaus. Täältä löytyy palapeli, mitä näyttää. Mistä puuttuu paloja. Tää on vähän samanlainen kuin se pöllö, mutta pikkusen eri idea. Sori, niiskutus.
We we were actually stuck on this puzzle mechanic for the longest time, and it was one of the longest and most drawn out discussions we had of the entire game, as far as I can remember, where we first started out with statues instead of a puzzle piece, and there were things you were supposed to do with the statues, but then we had a internal argument whether this was suited for Among the Sleep because of the child theme. Is this childish enough, or would the child not understand any of this? And so we ended up doing basically the same, but in a much more child-themed wrapping. So we made it a combination of a painting and a jigsaw puzzle instead. So you're basically finding jigsaw pieces, and I think it worked quite well in the end.
Okei, tästä ilmestyy taas tämmönen.
Here we used to have also like we were struggling doing a lot of rotation stuff earlier. Like you had to rotate the things you had in your hand to make use them, and the puzzles used to be that you had to rotate the puzzle right, but it was kind of not intuitive, and so we dropped that. Now it's easy to place.
I didn't know much about shaders before I started working on Among the Sleep. I did like an assignment on it back in school, but just saying to yourself that, yeah, okay, we need somebody that learns more about shaders, so let's do this and just dive into it and start discovering this whole world of possibilities. And then you have teammates that join you and are as eager as you at learning new stuff, and suddenly you have, like, for example, in level 3, when you place a puzzle piece in the center, like, wood stump there, and like the trees, the roots and stuff blocking the passages to the left just starts dissolving, and you just know the kind of effect you want to achieve before you start working on it. You know how to solve it, and you just solve it, and it works. It looks amazing. That's amazing.
Joo, se on ihmeellistä.
This is actually a lot of small animations here, which is interesting, and they will have a little subtle sound each time. Is to get people to understand that the painting is the object that you should go to, because earlier we had a lot of people kind of go around and look at everything else but the painting. Even when the painting was gone, they didn't really think about checking it.
Pitää vissiin klikata, että se lähtee liikkeelle.
The paintings are made as a part of the narrative storytelling, and they depict a woman standing on a bridge and ending up falling into the water, and all of these paintings are made so that they are related to the story, not directly. It's not the child's mother that is depicted, but if you look at each frame of the painting, then it tells parts of the story of the game.
So here we are in what we call the left wing, which is sort of the first meeting with the proper forest. This is kind of where things turn a bit weird for this level. So you were just in a house in a hall.
Wow.
And you still have a lot of house items, but now you are in a much more foresty area.
Joo, nyt ollaan vähän metsässä.
I guess this is the first chapter with an actual physical presence of a monster. So it's introduced very gradually during the whole start of the chapter. So in this left wing, she's not walking freely around, but you have a few events to introduce her theme of water and trees.
And also in level 3, there were a lot of quests that we planned on doing, but just we didn't find a way to do them correctly. In the left wing, you're going over a crate in the water, and that was supposed to be a little puzzle where you have to find something to push it into the water so you can cross the river, but it just didn't look right when we did it, so we had to scrap that. But I like the idea, so I'm disappointed that it's not there.
Joo, niin minäkin.
Well, at this point when you crawl to the log here, this is the first time you hear the monster. It's a little bit of a like a water splash, and that's your first sort of hint that there's something around, something active.
Apua. Se oli... Jokin on lähellä, mutta ei nähdä sitä vielä.
And once you go back here, there's actually not too many people who recognize this place, but you go back to sort of midways of the wing, and here we add some more sort of tension elements, like there's a bit more sound. There's a boat coming in slowly, which is just empty, and it will sink once it gets here. That's not a big thing, but it's this sound that rises in intensity kind of all the way up until you get back to the main hub area now.
No niin. Paljon pelottavia ääniä. Ei varsinaisesti hirviötä vielä ainakaan. Ellei ne olisi tehnyt siihenkin jotain muutoksia. Toikin puu näyttää aika pelottavalta. Okei. En varsinaisesti muista tätä paikkaa nyt oikein. Onko aikaa, kun mä oon tätä pelannut viimeksi, ettei ainakaan vähän aikaa näytä nodejakaan olevan. No, mä luulen kuitenkin tänne. Jaa, no. Aha, tästä. No, nodet vähän häippäs nyt vähäksi aikaa. Missä vaan nyt oikein? Aha, tänne ilmeisesti. Okei, vissiin tänne, no niin. Siinä vähän aikaa ihmeteltiin, no niin siellä kuin nodet tossa. Checkpoint.
So here we had a little thing what we want to implement, that we kind of felt that the forest was sort of wet. There was a lot of feeling with sort of the monster who had drowned and was drinking, so having a kind of humid and wet sensation in the level was something we decided. So this is like a little encounter showing this kind of distinguishing of a fire through the water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I died.
So to also kind of make it a bit less light and a bit less cozy. And if you look closely while going around here, you can actually see the hide the monster's face sticking up. Somewhere when you go down to the water there, pokes your head up and looks at you.
En tiedä, onko tuolla ennen mahdollista, että voi kuolla tuohon kohtaan. En mä ole varma. No vähän apua, älä taas mene sinne. En tiedä, onko toikin lisätty sitten. Vähän enemmän niin näitä mahdollisuuksia kuolla. En tiedä, onko. Vai kuvitteleeks mä taas. No niin, tänne piti mennä. En tiedä, mitä me tosin onnistuu kuolemaan. Okei. Mikä ääni se oli? Seuraava node.
She's very nature creature, so we kind of try to show people that you would find her near water and forests, and like here it would feel a bit safer. It's not here's like the first puzzle piece, and it's kind of narrow, but it's toys here, and it has the feeling of a kid being here before, which is a remnant of like the sub-story of this level before.
Okei, hienosti tuli lelutielle, niin siinä paha palane. No niin, silmestyi node. Keikka meillä on nyt 2/3 palapelistä.
So here's this airplane toy, and if you pick it up and move around, you'll actually see the propeller of the plane rotate while moving, as if it was actually flying. I think I spent about a day implementing that, which in retrospect was not the best use of time, I think. But it's a fun feature.
It is. Maybe even I should put some sounds to that. When this propeller moves, I can put a moving sound and or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. We should do that.
Yeah. I should also get a computer.
Niin, nyt vissi täältä joku reitti. Nyt tämmönen kaappimainen puunoksi tai mitä nää nyt onkaan. Miten nyt? Aha. Okei. Kai se toi piti mennä. Mä tän kuunnelluin.
And once you go back here, there's actually not too many people who recognize this place, but you go back to sort of midways of the wing, and here we add some more sort of tension elements, like there's a bit more sound, there's a boat coming in slowly, which is just empty and it will sink once it gets here. That's not a big thing, but there's a sound that rises in intensity kind of all the way up until you get back to the main hub area now.
Okay. Onks nää vaihtunut?
But at this point when you crawl to the log here, this is the first time you hear the monster. It's a little bit of a like a water splash, and that's your first sort of hint that there's something around, something active.
Tätä mä taas meinasin, nää rasittaliko. Ei tiedä, onks noi samat vai ei. Oho, mitäkin tapahtuu? Onko se joku uusi efekti? Ja sitten loppas kiinni. Se oli kans joku uusi ääni.
So here we are in what we call the left wing, which is sort of the first meeting with the proper forest. This is kind of where things turn a bit weird for this level. So you were just in a house in a hall, and you still have a lot of house items, but now you are in a. But once you kind of get through the plains, it sort of just quiets down. We wanted people sort of to feel a bit chill here, so every time you go through these paintings, there's some effects, and the audio changes into a sort of more neutral sound, and probably some light stuff too, visual stuff. Audio-wise, actually, each time you go back here, it feels more tense as you sort of get close to the end. We kind of want to ramp up, so now it's a bit less cool. And Teddy also reinforced that by telling you.
Okei, mä oletan, että nämä kaikki samoja. Näistä rasittavia. Toki. Okei, täällä.
Here we also have one of the more obvious hintings towards the theme of alcoholism, where the woman, if you notice the painting, drinks from the well and turns into some strange creature.
Joo. Ja täällä sektorilla tulee nyt oikeesti ensimmäinen vihu. En tiedä jännistääks mä nyt vähän, että mä pätkäsen nyt tähän ja jaksotan siis.
I really enjoy what we call the right wing. Here it starts out with, it's such a good transition between the house and the forest there. I think it starts out with the house and just the hallways. It's the building is damaged. You hear the creaking wood and the water is dripping in. And then you have this, you see the monster outside, and you have to go outside, and suddenly you're in just the swamp area, and it's such a completely different setting, just being in the house and being in the forest near the water, but it has such a fantastic and smooth transition to it. I really liked that particular part.
For these areas, we wanted to make the players feel that they were playing as a child character,
because that's one of the struggles we had with this level, that when you are out in the forest areas, it's much harder to get the feeling that you are actually playing a child compared to when being inside of a house. So in this right wing, since you have just been in the left wing, which is mainly forest and swampy areas, we made sure that you had to crawl underneath the bed and then crawl through the ventilation or whatever it is, and then immediately you have to use a stool or drag a stool in order to reach the doorknob to open the door. So just these small things to reinforce and remind the player that you are very small and tiny and that they are playing a child.
Joo, siinä taas jumpscare kai olevina. Kyllä tänne. Pitää taas tämmönen kohta, että pitää siirtää tuoli oven viereen. No. Näin, hienosti. No niin. Okei. Vetileivä vuotaa pahasti. Kohta ensimmäinen mörkö tulee. Uskalletaanko kurkistaa ikkunasta? Ei se menee. Arvatkaa, ketä se kuvastaa, olisiko tämän tyypin äitiä. Näytti vähän naiselta. Se on vähän enttimäinen olento. Enttipuu. Elikkä se on mörkkaa vissiin sitten äiti. Kai.
First visual effect and the first time you actually see an actual AI monster. This is cool. You see her through the window and she walks away further in. The road leads there to the well, and when you see the well next time, you know that she's out there somewhere.
Jep, se on creepy. En muista, onko noita kahvoja ennen tarvinnut pyöritellä, mutta pitää.
One thing I can think of is in level 3, the woman that is the monster was not originally the mother or the parent, or it was just another story about the mother who drowned and the child left behind. But with the new story it fit with the monster being the mother, and we went with that, and it works very well.
Onko?
Right here is actually a little bit of cool sound design, is that once you're above the bed there is the sound of dripping water on planks, but when you go beneath you hear the sounds of water dripping on planks from the other side, so you just hear like the dull thuds of it instead of kind of the watery splashes.
Yeah.
I always enjoy the view of the well from this point, with the fireflies above and the atmosphere of the forest waiting, and you know there's a monster waiting for you as well.
Yep.
I love the feeling of that place.
So you modeled that, I guess, and you created the well and you made the fireflies, I guess.
Yes, I spent way too long creating the well, and I think it's worth it. This is good.
Is this where you come out from the tunnel, or is this window?
From the tunnel, especially the view from the tunnel.
Okay. Seuraava.
One example of this is the well that can be found in level 3. We had a pretty big discussion about this internally with almost everyone on the team. Regarding, is it realistic or not that the child is able to raise the bucket in the well in order to obtain the key and the puzzle piece? And for this certain situation, this specific situation, it just turned into be a case where gameplay trumps realism sometimes. We're not really making 100% realistic baby simulator,
and it's also far out in a fantastical type of scenery and environment. So we let this one pass, even though we think that some players might question whether or not it's realistic for the child to be able to raise the bucket.
No, tää on taas tämmönen hankala pyörityskohta. Jos mä itse tekis huonosti tässä. Tuleeko sieltä tulos vai ei? Niin se pyörii. En tiedä mistä näin hankala. Mikä pitäis kyllä olla. No. Se nousi. No niin. Tuo oudosti piti pyörittää sormia ympäri. No niin. Se oli palapelipalanen. Mutta mä en tiedä aukeeks toi nyt sille. No. Kuuntelis pitää mennä muista.
I think it's important to kind of know that when you're working on something creative, you will always have lists and always have so much things you want to do before you finish. But I guess the important thing is prioritizing. Like in my opinion, like the gates did what we kind of wanted them to. That they kept the people there, and it might not be the most elegant solution, but like for instance, I haven't heard anyone hating it. So maybe it's not the best one we could have done, but it does the job, which is sometimes good enough, and it let us focus on other things, you know, like making the next part really scary. Because this part coming up is actually maybe the best thing in the game in a way. Like one of the coolest things when it comes to scare factor.
Voisi sitä pyörittää kyllä vielä. Miksi? Siellä on jotain noin. Mä oon tajunnut, että se kaksi juttua oli toi avain. Nimetään kiinni. Tavataan portti. Hieno.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw the monster implemented in this area. That was super bare bone. There was no real layout. There was only a few in that. And I remembered seeing her walking, and I was playing at a time where I did not know that she was implemented, and I just had this. I could really feel it in my stomach, and I still do in several situations. In several situations, I also get really tense. So I think that's a pretty clear indicator that we managed to achieve what we wanted in here, because there are very few other things in the game that affect me in the way that a horror game should, just because we've played it thousands of times during the production. So but this still I feel it sometimes when I get too close and to her, and I just crawl into a log or whatever.
Kaikki palat pitää päästä takaisin päähumialueelle.
This part is I'm really happy with this part, and how the monster comes down the path, and you see it at the end of the forest, and you get the scary effect if you're close enough. This is the first time the player encounters a monster that is able to catch you. This is the first time it's possible to be killed by the monster, and it's I think the build up leading towards this has been really good. I was afraid that it would be too long before you got to a monster, and I sort of think it is still, but it just it works really well here. And the forest area with the fog and the setting, the ambience and everything, I think one of the best places in the game.
Joo, ehkä mäkin olen samaa mieltä, että miksi nyt vasta huija, mutta joo, päädyttiin tämmöiseen.
So we have this system which allows us to use a trigger as a spawn point for the monster, and then put up a path where the monster will go. And so basically we drew a map. We started out by drawing a map of this island, and just set up points for where the monster should spawn, and then where it should go, and then what it should do afterwards, which is usually despawn.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that the player had at least a couple of encounters here where they would have to bump into the monster in the swamp, and we wanted the player to have multiple choices for routes to take, but we encourage the player to go to certain places first, and then and I think this worked out pretty good.
It's pretty late in the game the first time you encounter a monster. It's just around the point where you start wondering if there's going to be any monsters at all in this game, or if it's just going to be a walking simulator. But yeah, the first time you encounter a monster, like properly encounter it and can actually die. When the image effects trigger there, I think it works really well.
Tässä sektori saattaa olla nyt semmoinen, että on saattanut missään muutaman noden, mutta sillä ei ole mitään. Sitten on hirviö täällä myös. Täysin varma mihin suuntaan. Tuosta tänne. Tää ensimmäinen tämmönen iso ulkoalue myös. Tänne ilmeisesti. Hyvä tosi toi piirros, mikä mä otin.
It's pretty late in the game the first time you encounter a monster. It's just around the point where you start wondering if...
Mä oon kuunnellut noin. Okei, mä näköjään pyörii ympyrää. Vähän tänne. Sitten ei pääse, mutta tuonne kuitenkin. Oi! Tähän on tää kaatuva. Mä pelastin itteen. No niin.
I really hate this monster actually. Like I noticed that I get really tense when I know she's around and I don't quite know where she's coming from. So I did something right on her. She's creepy. And like the last bit of this level, I very rarely play without kind of no clipping between. I actually never knew that, but you can actually unhook the lamp. That's pretty cool. By the end of there's a lamp, at least by the end of the forest, which you can unhook. That's pretty cool. It's just kind of a bit more of how the game is about, you know, the interaction and the physical things.
En ole varma, onko näitä lankkuja tässä ollut aikaisemmin. Onko toi sitten lisätty jälkeenpäin? Ei muista.
I have a sound here that once every 200 seconds or so there's like a little bit of knocking from one of the barrels. So it sounds like maybe something is inside of one.
Okei, siinä tässä piirustus. Onko se joku vihje? No niin, pitikö tästä taas tälleen liikuttaa? Piti. Joo. Ihan kohta tulee se kohta, että pitää josta pakoa hirviötä. No en tein varsinaisesti, mutta vähän. Tää peliäkään muuttuu kaahistamaksi. Ja se menee. Sinne meni. Tässä kohta alkaa tulla se tunnelma, että tässä on näitä mörkkyjä. Okei, mä en ole varma mihin suuntaan. Ai niin, okei, mä muistan jo. Tää oli se ahistava paikka. Niin joo, kun se mörkkä meni kintereen, niin pitää avata portti myös samalla. Tästä musta yleensähän selvi. Tässä vaan menee. Menee eikä silleen hidastelle turhia, vaan löytäis sen kohan nyt tässä. En allekaan alas yhtään mitään. Onko tätä kuunnellut vielä?
I really hate this monster actually. Like I noticed that I get really tense when I know she's around and I don't quite know where she's coming from. So I did something right on her. She's creepy. And like the last bit of this level, I very rarely play without kind of no keeping between.
Se oli toi sama. Jossain täällä oli toinen portti. Ottava voi efekti. Tulee Slenderman mieleen. Siinä veteen taas. Älkää huoliko, jos sieltä tulee vielä. Se läpi.
This part is I'm really happy with this part, and how the monster comes down the path and you see that end of the forest and you get the scary effect if you're close enough. This is the first time the player encounters a monster that is able to catch you. This is
once you get to the gate, we have like an actual bit of a chase sequence, but it's not something you really notice too much. Like you notice the sounds start coming, and once you turn around. I hate this part.
Martin just died.
Vittu. Toi on inhottava. Tää peli ei silleen pelottavaa, mutta kuitenkin mä en tykkää tuommoista kohdistetta niinku pelaajaa niinku jahdata. Seuraatko vaan koko aika? Mä en tiedä onks toi skriptattu, että kuoleeko jos väkisin yhden kerran vai? Ei toi nyt silleen mitään vaikeeta, mutta se, missä se taas on, se portti on meina. Tää ahdistaa hieman. Missä se portti on? Täälläkö? Ai niin se on täällä, okei. Vois vaikka se lähemmäs tää tyyppi varpata. Ups. Mun mielestä mä kyllä En tiedä miksi tuli noin äkki. Mitä tässä? Okei, hyvä toi kuitenkin muistaa toi. Noniin. Hän auttaa hier. Mene! Ne. Voisitko sä ystävästi mennä? Kiitos.
So we have actually two chase sequences. That was the first sort of chase thing. I'm not gonna even turn around now. And here is the next part, because now she's gonna... This is actually quite mean, because we implemented this for a test to show people at the GDC. And we made it impossible to escape her here, so this is where people would just get caught anyways. Now we, like, of course in the game there is a way. She will rise behind you.
I really enjoy what we call the right wing. Here it starts out with, it's such a good transition between the house and the forest there. I think it starts out with the house and just the hallway.
When you go through again, you will get like the same sort of washing off, and it will be less tense when you go into the main area again. Rinse off, rinse off.
Täällä taas. Ja mä oletan, että nämä nodet on samoja. Ja fuck that. Fuck those. No niin, ja päästään täällä pääpaikka. Se merkka on kuitenkin meidän kintäneillä vielä. Joo, mä luulen, että tää nyt on hyvä kohta jaksottaa. Vaikka taso on loppuhuipennusta olisi ollutkin, mutta joo, mä jatkan tästä vähän myöhemmin. Ja ensi kerralla morjes, että tavallaan mä vähän hermostuttaa toi. No niin, moikka.